What's up, everybody? This is Karak from ACG, and you might know me from my series of Choose Your Own Adventure books for the armless. Turn the page to see what happens, clap if you're happy, and rock, paper, oh yeah, you actually can't play. But I also do game reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap, and today I'm taking a look at Aztez, a turn-based strategy game mixed with a 2D fighter, all slathered in basically newspaper print. It's a bit like a stripped-down Golden Axe with only one lane of attack, and the dwarf is replaced with a bunch of dudes who skipped leg day, and mix that with a strategy light version of Civilizations if the game only had one nation, and if that nation was filled with folks who cake themselves with testosterone cream and then just beat the shit out of each other 24/7. Oh, and of course, there's blood sacrifices, but I think that goes without saying. Aztez is from Team Colorblind and is out now for $17.99 on Steam and supposedly later on the PS4 and Xbox One. Let's see how it does, shall we? As always, if you like the video, maybe subscribe. So here's my review for Aztez: global warming hijinks, lack of appropriate leg armor, and the world's scariest swords. Graphics are first. You know, I think it's interesting, and that's the high number of games that are going for this unique pared-down colored style, while still pushing complex gameplay at the same time. And while at different moments it is a bit confusing overall, it does actually work here with a black and white feel to everything but splashes of color usage to denote things like a city's slow descent into madness, which I guess really poses the question, how low into madness can you go before you're eating placentas and buying stuff off QVC at night so you can look like a bird of prey in your next battle? Apparently, this game's trying to answer that. Now, the color motif itself works well for the most part, throughout the entire overland section especially, with a nice thick line set to differentiate objects and finer details spread out across the various things occurring in that overland mode. Now, when you jump into the 2D fighting mode, it's both awesome and, to be honest, a little bit confusing. When you're slashing through a bunch of bird mask wearing freaks, it can be a blast showering the world with splashes of blood, zip double leg kicking some shield carrying buffoon, and then ground slamming an enemy that is apparently one of the only people in this game that's not endowed with the power of flight. The only issue is, no matter what, even games using their full color spectrum can be confusing when things get hot and heavy and up close in these type of titles, and Aztez sadly has some of the same issues, but it's compounded by the color scheme. It's black and white and red, and then black and white, and then black and white and green, and then black and white and red again. And then multiply that by like 10, and then try to differentiate which bird-winged warrior of ancient spiritual vengeance is currently gearing up to spear you like a goddamn rotisserie chicken. And to be honest, many times I chose poorly. Now, if Aztez didn't look so damn cool while it was doing all this, it would be a bigger deal, but as it is, it's just sort of noticeable. To me though, I have to say I dig the look, and the use of various small color shadings and the tactical gameplay works well to differentiate things like the type of quests, the levels of descent, and so forth. While the 2D sections might get a little bit messier, as I said before, they were always playable, and the overarching design always trying to channel the designer's idea of what Aztecs would look like if their cool stat was maxed out can easily be seen. Also, the game runs technically very well, with 4K at 60 FPS being attainable by anybody with an i7. I had mine at 4.2 and a 1080. Anyone with a somewhat current CPU and current GPU is going to be able to run this just fine at some of the higher resolution settings. I just wish it had more graphical options, because it's just got two: full screen, not full screen, and your resolution. As a package, I have to say this: I adore the idea behind Aztez, and much of it works incredibly well due to smart design. But when the going gets hot and heavy, and the hot and heavy gets going, it's hard to figure out which black and white line dude of the 10 on the screen is the one currently prepping to rip through your insides like the world's most questionable burrito. That did cause a couple issues: sound, music, and voice. Let's switch this up and do voice first. None, so let's move on. How about sound? You know, this is actually pretty good sound work, and even when you're being baby sealed by a dude with a weapon that looks like a club and an orange is just duct taped to it, the game has no problem going down low to pay off with thick, boomy hits. It also has some excellent change-ups to alert you to different statuses of enemies, and soon you'll be listening for the sound of glass breaking to indicate to you that the current dude you're ending your 70-hit combo on is well past his own expiration date. The game has no real problem using the entire spectrum and also making that pay off for gamers when it comes to information delivered via sound. Most weapons have a good solid impact and report and differentiate themselves enough that it can help during the heavier battle scenes, and I really thought they did a good job on the sound. Music. So this isn't bad. While it doesn't really do anything surprisingly well, the track's use of various woods and percussions does give it a nice tribal sound, and while absolutely more epic than I thought a series of tracks would be for a game like this, it does seem to fit overall. I also love the dichotomy, for example, the thick percussions, bass beats, and thumping rhythms in the battle scenes, then they sort of fade out the moment you win and that bass is removed and a trumpet mix alerts you to your success and your score. There's something very informational about that moment, and I like that payoff audibly, and we don't see that a lot of times in games. While there isn't a great deal here, I think most of it is handled really well. Gameplay. And of course, a little bit about the story, but basically there isn't much of a story in Aztez. You jump into the game and you have the ability to play the campaign, train, and perform in the arena. Now, the campaign is where the magic happens, as you take on the mantle of basically a leader sending out warriors to take actions in the cities, and the amount of warriors you have is basically your life counter before the game ends and the amount of actions you can also take in the turn. But let's be honest, for the most part, every action's basically you leaping into an area and smashing the shit out of anyone protesting the upcoming Sunday's blood sacrifice. You start with one warrior, but by using a mix of smarts, good battle results, and maybe getting lucky on drawing an event card, you may get more warriors so that you can take more actions during your turn and, of course, more lives. As you play those events and get further into the game, there's growing dissent in the cities. Now, invaders in the form of a bunch of conquistadors on horseback and the occasional sacrifice festival occurs, and you try to keep a keen hand on your constantly struggling empire. In the overland map, you can pay particular characters in the game world for special favors, like locking down a city's love for you, which means they never dissent ever again, or buying a random event card, or turning a neutral city into one of your own. And each time you buy a favor, its price raises by one resource, and of course at the end of each turn those resources are calculated via how much you own. And to me, at least, this is where Aztez nails the gameplay. You jump in and it's already a game of Jenga puzzle as your teetering empire goes from one horrid drought to another bloody Sunday, constantly having to juggle resources with available actions, and it works tremendously well. Now, once you decide to take action at a city, you basically head into battle. The character themselves can gather an assortment of 8 weapons from the start, like sword, dagger, and later on just going in bare-fisted. As you encounter more enemies and perform more actions, you start to slowly unlock items to outfit your character with as well, because as everyone knows, it's not just crippling your foes with a sword to the dome, you gotta look good while doing it. Now, when you're in battle, the game plays out with you having the ability to switch weapons with the D-pad, block and perfect time parry with the right trigger, dash with the bumper button, and suck up enemy blood from the ground with your other trigger so that you can replenish your life bar, and there's also a couple actions later on. This also works with the keyboard and mouse. To me, it's the balance of gameplay moments combined with Aztez's enemy design and lethality that works so well. While you can attack low, medium, or air juggle them, they might be shooting you in the face with old guns, flying halfway across the screen, or just smashing your face with a sword, and many of them require specific attacks to defeat. Some enemies can always block juggles, others can always block low attacks, others can always block normal attacks, and then boom, you mix them all together and shit gets hectic fast. Gone are the moment where an entire level of enemies can be skewered at the end of a long-reach death stick, and instead only 1 or 2 enemies can be hit, while you notice that another's blocking you and gearing up for their own special attack. This is really good stuff. It certainly is not a button masher as well. As you get into the later enemies, magic guns and brute force will all be used against you, and they try everything to take you out, and some encounters, honestly, are brutally difficult and require intense focus to juggle one enemy, blast away without letting your last hit them so that you don't get turned into a mid-air splat by another character gearing up to attack you, and then take out the legs of a foe as you land. There's a lot to like with Aztez, as the game really does sit down and almost instantly get you going. This is also reflected in the arena mode, which is a progressively meaner list of bad guys that quickly escalates into a series of oh shit moments. Now, when it comes to the length, the game isn't really that long in the normal sense, but it has dynamic gameplay, content, and it's changing each time you play. There's also over 60 items to unlock for your character's clothing choices and various strategies and overall styles of play. It does add a great deal, even if some folks might find that combat curve, especially around mid-game, stunningly high. And in fact, if you like difficulty, there's an item you can get that basically starts the game out even more difficult, and I suggest you probably don't use that until you really know what you're doing. Fun factor. Yeah, this was a blast, and one of the reasons is because it offers so many things in such a small package. It's one of those games you can sit down and play for hours or minutes. If you want to battle it out and take on the heavies in the training and arena, you can do that. And trust me, those dudes make superheroes look like friggin' Walmart greeters. Or if you want to jump into the strategy game, you can call down some gods and soak the landscape with enemies' vital fluids. You can do that if you want. For me, it was the ability to just take actions without a ton of rigmarole. Strategies pay off, but ultimately, at some point, quickly, you're leaping into battle with 20 other enemies that all look like they were made by a newspaper machine and just smash the shit out of each other. So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touch it again rating scale, with rent being replaced by deep sale on Steam titles like this. This is a buy. It is at a really good price. It is fantastic amounts of fun, and there is a ton of replayability. Of course, if you don't like these kind of games, if you're not a strategy fan, and if you're not a 2D fighting style fan, then it's not going to be for you. But if you like either one of those, you might want to check it out because there is a lot to be offered in Aztez. So as always, if you liked the video, give this a thumbs up. If you disliked it, give it a thumbs down. Remember, helping out on Patreon using the Amazon links and sharing it on different forums or Twitter is always a way to help me continue to bring reviews that aren't 2 minutes long or filled with sponsored bullcrap. Peace out and enjoy the rest of your week.